Yo, what is good, guys? It's boy Miklik. Welcome back to another Haikyu Fly High video. And as you can see here, I made a dupe priority tier list with all the SSRs we have now and all the upcoming SSRs that we're gonna get. I made it so you guys know what to prioritize, what dupes benefit more with other units, and so on. And before I start the video, I want to talk about each tier so you guys aren't confused. And even though you might have a little bit of confusion throughout the video, but bear with me. So 6 dupes slash S4, obviously S4 means skill res 4. Just because these characters are on this tier doesn't mean they're bad. And it also doesn't mean that you should go on and invest 6 dupes into them just because it's on the tier. No, that's not how it works. The characters that are on this tier are for characters who benefit more with the dupes. Some characters' dupes, like the ones down here, don't have so much of an impact compared to the ones up here because some characters on max dupes could have game-changing effects like giving more stamina and spamming your ultimate frequently, but doesn't mean the characters need it. No, they just benefit more with the dupes. The same goes for the 2 dupes, but the reason why the characters are in the 2 dupes is because in their S4, they don't really need it as much because S2 makes much more of an impact than getting the S4. And then for 0 dupes high dupe impact, just because it says 0 dupes doesn't mean it's bad, because then you don't actually have to invest dupes into these characters and you can save your resources. But it's just that the skill res doesn't have a huge impact as the characters in 6 dupes, but if they were to get duped up, it will benefit them because when most units get duped up, they gain a benefit, some more than others. And for the units in 0 dupes minimal impact, it's literally the same as the 3rd tier. It's just that their skill res doesn't actually benefit them as much as the others do. But nonetheless, this series will help you now and in the future because I'll be explaining why every unit is in their specified tier, and I'll be talking about their skill res. I also should have said this in the beginning of the video. I did not make this tier list on my own. I had help with my friends, Chewy, Rin, and Numir. But that's about it, and hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. So we have Gosh on S4, because with his S4, he could essentially spam his ultimate, and that's crucial. It's like a mini Ushijima, and it will have a lot of power output. But again, like I said in the beginning of the video, it doesn't mean you should fully invest into 6 dupes. He just benefits more with it, so keep that in mind for when I'm talking about every other character, so there's no confusion. But yes, he could essentially spam his ultimate once he reaches S4. Yuji has the same thing. He could spam his ultimate once he reaches S4, but he gives a whole backline receive percentage with his S2. His S4 increases his power output, and he could spam his ultimate with it. We have Eren at S4, even though he consumes 60% stamina, because with S2 it helps him with stamina control, and with S4 the more stamina he gains, the more his attack technique increases. And considering the fact that his ultimate essentially has no cooldown, obviously it means he'll go off the court quick, but his skill res benefits him a lot more than most of the people here because of the tremendous power output he could do with his ultimate that has no cooldown. For Hinata, essentially when he does a quick attack, his ulti cooldown resets. So essentially, like these 3 guys here, it's all related to the ultimate and how much the skill res can affect it. For Tanaka, his S4 is actually pretty crazy. Once he scores with his ultimate, he gains 40% more power for the whole match. And considering the fact that his S2 allows his 2 first attacks to have more power output, it just increases his chances to gaining that 40% the whole match. For Kita, his S4 is very reliable. As long as your ally uses their ultimate, they gain 10 stamina back because of Kita's S4. So you could probably notice synergies going around here with Eren and stuff, but he could combine well with other teams because of the 10 stamina after each ult, which will make your characters last longer on court, and it's very reliable, similar to Daichi where whoever spikes after his receive gains more power percentage and it's 50% less stamina consumption. Very good. Situational with Daichi, but nonetheless having both of those outputs is enough to keep them at 6 dupes. Again, I'm not telling you guys that you need their 6 dupes. I'm just stating that it benefits them way more than compared to other characters around here. For S2 we got Nishinoya, and as you guys know, his ultimate will take 10 less stamina, which is very crucial. His S4 doesn't matter as much because the only issue Nishinoya had was his stamina. Asahi, same issue, his stamina. And for Asahi, his S2, his spike ultimate, it goes from 30 to 20 stamina consumption, and his receive skill, which is his first skill, doesn't take away stamina anymore, meaning he will stay on the court longer, which is what a lot of people wanted. So it's very perfect for him to have his S2, but his S4 just gives him more power output. But the main issue was his stamina, and since that's fixed, he already gives enough power output anyways, so just staying with his S2 is perfectly fine. For Fukurodani's liberal, his S2 essentially decreases his receive ultimate cooldown, and apart from it being decreased, all allies power attack is now increased by 3% up to 5 stacks, which is very good just for S2 because then he could get his ultimate quick and then keep dumping that power boost. And for Izumi's S2 is very essential because as long as he's on the court, he increases everybody's crit damage. And for his S4, he actually decreases the opponent's block percentage, which is actually very good, and I can understand why he could be an S4, but he's mainly used for utility and he's like a backup spiker, and his skill res just gives so much more support. So I could see why he could fit up to S4, but he just has so much support. Keeping him at S2 is perfectly fine just for the crit percentage overall. now. So with Wildman, he has a change of conditions. So whenever he blocks, he actually reduces power and quick attack by 10%, which is basically what Tsukishima does already without any dupes. So you can see the reasoning between why he's actually S2, because it's very essential, and it's very good if you plan to use him long term. And for Mad Dog, his S2 is very good, especially if you want to use him long term. And with his S2, he debuffs the enemy's blocking and receive by giving them -5 stamina, and it's a strong weakening debuff, which is very good during long rallies. And for Kaga, his S2 is actually permanent, because as long as he's front row, and he's always going to be front row because he's a setter, the opponent's block percentage will be reduced by 4%, which is very good since it's permanent, and it increases your chances of getting past the block. So having that as a permanent debuff is very useful. And for Shadow Blue, as long as an ally activates a power skill, all allies' attention increases by 1% and reaction increases by 2% up to 5 stacks. So skill res 2 is very useful because it just requires the ally to activate a power skill, which always happens, and then everyone else will just gain attention and reaction. So now we're on to Zero Dupe's high dupe impact. And as I said in the beginning of the video, literally all units benefit from dupes. But for the solid standpoint, Tsukishima without dupes is perfectly acceptable because he already gets debuff with his block skill, and there's no game-changing things with his skill res because he already has the debuffs made with his block skill on default, and a lot of characters synergize with other characters that include debuffs. And then for Tendo, it's basically the same thing. Even though Tendo doesn't give debuffs, his skill res 2 applies debuffs, but only in the start of the match, which doesn't make it useful later on because it's only at the start of the match, and then for longer matches, it just goes away and there's no way to reactivate it again. And for Kuro, similar to Tendo, he gives very good buffs. Skill res 2 just removes his charge stack limit, and it's not really game changing. All it does is remove his charge stack limit, and then the rounds still have to progress. Same thing goes for his skill 4, but then again, it's nothing game changing like Gosh's or Yuji's, because for Gosh and Yuji's, it's actually game changing because you can spam your ultimates. And then for Tanaka, completely game changing because you could instantly get permanent 40% power just for scoring with his ultimate. And then Kito with the 10 stamina, and then so on, so on. And once he's out of position, it doesn't do much anymore. And now we're heading on to the Fukurodani. And as I said in the beginning of the video, Fukurodani was the issue I had when making the tier list with my friends, because for the Fukurodani team, it all depends if you're running the actual team with Bokudo, because with Akashi, the skill res 2 only gives morale boost. It's only essential if you're running Bokudo, and you most likely are going to be running Bokudo if you have Akashi. But if you're not running Bokudo, Akashi is a very good power setter, so the Fukurodani members you see here could just go up depending on their team because of the morale boost they could give with their skill reses. But apart from not being with Bokudo or combining with Akashi, they're fine with zero dupes because they do their job, and if they were to run with the team and get their skill res, their dupes will have high impact. And for Furukuchi, his skill res 2 enhances his serve, but his serve isn't good to begin with anyways, and it's just not worth duping just because you want to buff his serve. So it's very understanding why you don't actually need a skill res 2. For Sassman, again, it's a date tag team. They all do blocks, but just like most opposite hitters, you don't actually use them for blocks because you use your middle blocker for blocks mainly. And if you guys see my cross on a video, the time where you have to use your opposite hitter or wing spiker to block, it's usually never, because it depends on the outcome of the opponent's play. And most of the time, the middle blocker just has better debuffs and buffs for the team overall when it comes to blocking. So most of the time, you're just going to be using your middle blocker, never the opposite hitter or wing spiker. There's a reason why he's solid at zero dupe, and if you were to have a dupe, it will be high impact depending on the team. For Akagi, skill res 2, it increases his receive percentage, and he reduces the cooldown of the player's receiving skill if it wasn't a good play, meaning his skill res 2 actually relies on the negatives, which isn't what you actually want. You want your teams to have good plays, but it's also a backup just in case it doesn't happen, because as we all know, we all get bad plays, especially when we're going against higher rated comps. For Inarizaki, wing spiker, his skill res 2 increases his receive by 15%, and his first receive in each set will not result in a loss, but that's for each set, not each round, so that's not much changes anyways. For Ahara, skill res 2 and 4, it's just more moves that require him to do nice play in order for him to receive those stats, which obviously is good because most of the time you will receive nice plays depending on the situation. And one of his moves already increases his awareness and reaction instantly, meaning he's already good without the skill res. It's just extra touches at the end of the day. And for Yamagata, his skill res 2 only gives receive to backward players for 3 rallies, which goes away fairly quick. So skill res 2 is essentially useless after 3 rallies. Good for start of the match like Tendo's, but once it goes away, there's no way to activate it again. So that's why it's not very important. And for Semi, all his skill res does is give him serve benefits, which is perfectly fine for his skate because he is essentially a pinch server. So keeping him here with zero dupes high dupe impact will benefit his serves more, but he already has a solid kit because he's mainly a pinch server, so he will do fine without the skill res. And for Oikawa, similar to Emi's serve stats, he gains a lot of serve benefits with his skill res, and this was a tricky one for me because you realistically couldn't put him at 6 dupe or maybe even 2 dupes because it does tremendously help him with his serves, but in my opinion, he's mainly a setter, increasing more toss with attack rhythm and everything else he has in his kit. So when you put his skill res just for serves, it means since he mainly has to be in his serving position when he starts, which is completely fine by the way. Everyone does it. But with his S4, he obviously gains 2 stacks of attack rhythm once he serves, and if he scores with his dangerous serve, he gets to use his serve ultimate once again. But in this game, as most of us know, we don't actually score a lot with our serves, and I know you could do this trick where you could reset your game over and over until you could score with what we call a serve, but that's how you know it doesn't really happen. But when it does happen, it does actually make a huge impact because he gets his attack rhythm effects. So this is why I had an issue with like maybe he could be 6 dupes, 2 dupes, but I feel like he's perfect at 0 dupes but high dupe impact because he's mainly a setter, unlike Semi, because Semi is actually mainly focused on serving, while Oikawa's main focus is actually setting, increasing the toss's perimeter. But then you look at his skill res and it's just mainly focused on his 1 serve OT. So I'll let you guys fully choose where Oikawa belongs, but I feel like he belongs in 0 dupe high dupe impact because with his dupes he'll gain more impact with his serves, but I'm leaving that up to you guys. And now we're finally on to 0 dupes minimal dupe impact, and you can probably see a trend between the setters here because Kemen with his skill res, it requires him to use his setter dump, and you shouldn't be using the setter dump from your setter anyways because you'd rather do high impact scores with your opposite hitters or wing spikers, so your skill res buffing setter dumps is completely useless. Same goes for Kageyama. He has the same exact thing. It buffs his setter dump, but you shouldn't even be using your setter dump when you have a setter, and that's his auto battle because it does it automatically. Next for Lev, his skill res doesn't make much of an impact anyways because the opposing member needs to have disadvantage effects for his skill res to work, and even when his skill res does activate when the opposing player has a disadvantage effect, he only increases the block by 5%. Obviously you could build around people who have debuffs so you can help Lev, like Tsukushima could help Lev with his debuff so that he could get his skill res 2 to be more optimal. But then if you go to his skill res 4, it just enhances his quick attack when the ally's toss is perfect, and essentially it would just be minimal dupe impact. For Yaku, his skill res 2 gives him receive times 20%, which is honestly a big amount, but that's about it. For skill res 4, I'm pretty sure he gains more cover and receive when your opponent reaches match point, which is essentially 1 time a game, so that doesn't really help, and that's why he's really minimal dupe impact. You could make an exception for him for a high dupe impact, but considering the fact that his skill res 4 is only to match point, and then his skill res 2 is just a basic 20% stat increase, it's literally just minimal impact. For Suno, I do think you guys will completely agree with me because his skill res 2 is essentially just a skill. It just uppers his stat by a bit, and then same goes for skill res 4, so there's not much of a difference. He's literally minimal dupe impact. I mean, yeah, increases his stats like most players, but when you guys check his skill res, it's exactly just his move, just with a slightly upper increase. Or maybe I have a mistranslation on my side because that happens a lot because some of the translations say attention when it's actually say awareness, and then certain skill names might be actually different because of mistranslation. But based on what I was reading with Suna, his skill res is basically just a skill with slight increase in stats, so that's why I placed it in minimal dupe impact. And I think that's pretty much it, guys. As I said in the beginning of the video and throughout the whole video, I'm not influencing you guys to go for the 6 dupes because you need it. These characters just benefit more with it, and same goes for the 2 dupes and the 0 dupes because every unit benefits with dupes, but some more than others. So hopefully you guys understand that. And if you do want to disagree or agree with stuff, I'm open to suggestions because depending on the team and a certain situation that you could have, make sure to join the Discord if you have any questions for team builds or anything. People will be happy to help you. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.